Okay, we are live. Welcome, everyone. You are in the right place if you planned to attend Take Your Body Off Mute, Nonverbal Communication and Influence. So, whether you're joining from LinkedIn, YouTube, even Facebook, anywhere that you're joining from, I would love for you to say hello. So, let me add this. So, welcome, everyone. Be sure to share your name, where you're joining from, and your industry. I want to make this an opportunity not just to learn from me, but to also learn from each other and perhaps connect with each other afterward. So if you haven't already connected with me here on LinkedIn, definitely do so. I would love to say hi. I'd love to hear more about what you have going on. So welcome, everyone. Be sure to share your name, where you're joining from, and your industry. And again, you're in the right place if you're here for Take Your Body Off Mute. I know body language is a pretty big topic when it comes to communication in general, let alone public speaking. So I want to make sure to demystify any myths that we have about body language. Is it 90% of your communication? Who knows? Actually, we do know it isn't 90%. However, it is a huge portion. About 60 to 70% of how your communication is perceived is through that congruence between what you're saying, and how it looks. So we want to make sure how it looks really matches how you feel and what you're expressing. So I'm gonna check the comments here. If you haven't introduced yourself yet, please do so. And if you join after this live session and you're watching the recording, don't hesitate to introduce yourself. I still think there are many opportunities to continue networking with other folks. Okay. We'll get started in a couple minutes, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you. Thanks to everyone who's joined me live. Thanks to everyone who joined me live a couple of weeks ago when I hosted a public speaking Ask Me Anything. Got some really great questions about body language as well, but also my own motivations for being a public speaking coach, whether nerves are something that we're always going to feel when we're speaking, whether we are recording ourselves, we're in an interview, we're in person, let's say we're at a conference. There are so many different types of speaking, so many different environments, so many things that can cause us pressure and cause us stress. And so I find being prepared for all of those situations can be really helpful in building our confidence. Now, to anyone who's here, live or otherwise, let me know in the chat what drew you to this topic. I'm really excited to see what is the most relevant for you. And of course, there will be a few minutes at the end for question and answers as well. So let me know in the chat what drew you to this workshop. But let's also get started. Oh, that's a lot bigger than I wanted to be. There we are. So today we're going to learn some key aspects or core knowledge, here we are, on how to take your body off mute. Since we've been using Zoom for quite a bit, there are still some people, and honestly, we make these mistakes probably at least once a week, where you keep your audio on mute. Whoops, hey, you're on mute. You unmute, you're good. But do we think enough about how we're being perceived, whether in person or Zoom, and how we're managing our body language? I don't think we do sometimes. I see two different types of body language. Either absolutely no body language, kind of stone-faced, kind of locked, or frantic, rambling, frenetic movement. These can really betray your own confidence. This can show that you're feeling quite a bit more nervous than you expected. You might be surprising yourself with how nervous you are. You might surprise your supervisor. And we want to make sure that not only are you communicating best to your own authenticity, but you're doing it so in a way that really carries your message along. Okay. To introduce myself a little bit more, hello everyone. My name is Sammy Walker Herrera, and I have coached many leaders in their public speaking and executive presence. I've worked with folks at Belkin, Carrier, Google, PNC, based here, or at least folks based here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm currently based. And I have a passion for helping folks find ways to better express their expertise and manage the nerves that can come from public speaking pressure. It's not easy putting yourself out there. It's not easy getting a new work assignment and realizing that public speaking is a big part of it. I mean, we may even look back to being in college and being assigned to a group presentation and so wishing we instead had the report rather than the presentation. So my goal today is to make it just that much easier to put yourself out there and put your body into your speaking as well. If you've recently joined, don't hesitate to introduce yourself in the chat. I'd love to know your name, what industry you're in, and why you joined today. Now, to introduce myself just a little bit further, obviously, I'm not a graphic designer. However, I am a Latin dance teacher. I've hosted many public speaking workshops, both in person and virtually, and I jumped into stand-up comedy in January. It's something that's been really fun. Last month, I was actually asked to perform 10 minutes of comedy rather than the 5 that I had prepared, so I had to prepare quite a few more jokes, but what I find is when you're really in the mindset to write, when you're really looking at the world and you're thinking from your perspective or looking out at things that just stand out to you, it's just so much easier to write jokes. So if you ever want to riff off about comedy with me, let me know. Glenn is someone that I was able to work with in the last year. He has now become a trusted friend and someone who I really respect in his focus on coaching. Starting coaching, if you've never had a coach before, can be a bit intimidating. Sometimes it's hard to admit, hey, I need to level up in this one area. I need to find someone who can help me do that. We may have used our college career centers, maybe we haven't. And so if you still have alumni access, definitely reach out to your college career center and definitely reach out to a coach or even at least start with Toastmasters to get some feedback and evaluation on your public speaking. Now, what drew you to this workshop? As we go along, anyone who's joining any point in this live or watching the recording, I would really love to know what specifically drew you to this workshop so I can really focus on answering those types of questions and writing posts about them here on LinkedIn. All right, now stretch assignment. As you can see, I'm the only one on camera right now, and you may be watching this with multiple people. Maybe you're watching this on your own in your office. That's totally fine. And so this is a challenge by choice. If you're interested in doing this, feel free to join me. If you want to challenge yourself, definitely join me, but you can at least watch. So my recommendation is if you are feeling comfortable, feel free to stand up. So what I'm going to do is show you a stretching exercise that can help you get more of a sense of the space that you have. Now for me, I have an L-shaped desk. I have a big monitor here. I have my laptop here. I have my microphone here. There are times when I'm in this space, I feel a little constricted or a little confined. However, I have a lot more space than I realize. So if I put my hands forward, feel free to follow along if you wish. Hands to the side. Hands toward the back. And again, this is good for your movement. Here in the East Coast, it is after 5 p.m., so this could be nice to just get some stretching in after work. I'm going to raise my hands, stretch them as high as I can, and even stretch my hands low. Now I'm going to move my hands to the side, as you can see here, to the side, and I'm actually going to rotate just a little bit. So feel free to join the rotation too. And what you'll see is you can't see my hands or even really my forearms past the camera. However, this area is still valuable for gesturing. You don't have to limit yourself to the box that Zoom, WebEx, Skype, whatever limits you. You can highlight that you're shooting hoops, basketball, and even though folks can't fully see that based on the camera, it's still a gesture that's really descriptive and allows people to really engage more with your story. So I recommend before speaking, do some type of stretch exercise to remind yourself of all the space that you do have when speaking, so you don't feel like you have to limit yourself or contort yourself into this Zoom box. Now let me set my camera back here. That was our fun warm-up or stretch assignment here. Okay, Now let's put it in neutral. Honestly, I drive and I don't 100% know what the neutral shift does. So anyone who wants to educate me on that, I am totally fine with it. Now, one of the biggest questions I get about body language is what do I do with my body? What do I do with my hands? How do I hold my body? What makes the most sense here? I don't want to look awkward. Totally valid questions. So, what we want to do is we want to get used to having a neutral pose. And one of the things that betrays or counters a neutral pose is this when we're fidgeting with our hands. We may try to give off the sense that we're cool, calm, and collected, but there are tells that may show that we're not feeling as calm as we're trying to portray. So, how do we make sure we put ourselves in a neutral position and not show some of those tells? I know in the past, I used to play with my hair when I was nervous, and I actually got feedback from an interviewer letting me know about that. So, that was a quick lesson. And for a while, what I would do is I would pull my hair back. I'd put it in a bun or in a ponytail. But now it's something that I'm so aware of that I have no issue having my hair out. Now I might move it at some time, so maybe some type of manageable hairstyle will help. However, not as much of an issue as it was a few years ago, especially when I was interviewing. So let's think about an exercise that can help you have more of a neutral position. Because no matter what, a lot of the time when we're speaking, we're going to be sitting down, whether that's in person or online. So my exercise here, again, challenge by choice. If you're interested in doing this, feel free to. If you don't want to and you just want to watch me, that's totally fine. But my recommendation is if you are interested and able to, is to move your seat back. I've moved mine and you probably heard me hit the wall. If not, then the filters for the audio are working. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit on the edge of my seat here. So I'm leaving probably like 80% of the seat surface area without me sitting on it. What I find when I'm sitting on the edge of the seat is I feel a strong intentionality. I know something is different than just typing on my computer or on any other type of call. The second thing is that my posture inherently straightens up. And when your posture is straightened, that actually allows your lungs to have more space. So instead of your lungs being like kind of crumpled in by me slouching, by having a straighter posture, I'm able to have more space, which allows me more deep breaths, which is really great for managing pressure. This also allows me space for my arms to move. Now, it's very tempting. I'm at a desk here for me to place my arms here on the desk. But you see what happened right here is I just immediately started slouching. So my recommendation for this neutral position is, other than sitting on the edge of the seat, again, naturally straightening your posture, is to make sure that your hands are either on your lap or that you're actively gesturing with either one hand, the other hand, both hands. You have options here. We just want to make sure that unless we're leaning in specifically to give a point, that we're maintaining this neutral position. Just this quick change, just this intentional sitting at the edge of the seat can be really helpful, again, for putting you in the mode of, okay, I know I'm going to be visible, I know I'm speaking, and I know that I want to be confident. This can be really helpful for you in setting that position. And so let me know if you try it. Let me know in the chat how it felt, if it feels natural, if it feels awkward. I welcome any feedback here. Now, what I also want to talk about, our second lesson here, is solar. So I'd love to know in the chat if you are familiar with solar. So just hit me with a yes or no. Yep, I've heard of solar before. I do it every day. Nope. What's that? Totally fine with it. Solar was created by Gerard Egan in the book The Skilled Helper. And it's actually something that is taught to counselors. How do I know this? I was in a higher education master's program that had counselor education courses. This is something that I was able to learn in my master's program. SOLAR is an acronym that helps you remember how to shift your body language in a way that's open and receptive to other people, to convey that interest, openness, and compassion that we see here. So let's break down the 5 parts of solar, shall we? All without needing to break out the SPF. Okay. So if we're shining with solar, if you have your notebooks, if you're taking notes, feel free to write this down. We have SOLER. We're going to break them down and highlight how you can bring these into practice. So the S for solar stands for sitting squarely. Now that's where sitting at the edge of your seat is going to be really helpful in that regard. What we want to do when we're sitting squarely is have our feet planted on the ground. We want to make sure that we're angling our body toward the person that we're speaking to, especially if it's a one-on-one engagement. So, for example, like an interview, a negotiation, a casual chat. I find practicing these skills casually, like in casual environments, like with friends, can be really helpful. So it becomes a lot more natural without the pressure. So what you want to do is sit squarely, angle your body toward the person that you're speaking to, the person that you're listening to. The next one is O. So that's your open posture. Time and time again, and it's just very easy to cross our legs, which harms the sitting squarely piece, and to cross our arms. Immediately, that can be perceived as closed off, not willing to listen, not being part of the conversation, wanting to leave. So what we want to do is uncross our legs, uncross our arms. We want to make sure that we have that open posture, that we open our shoulders and we are showing more of our body to that person. Again, angling to that person to show that we are open and receptive to what they're saying. There are times, even with close friends, we may feel defensive, and that's when you may notice that you're closing your body language. So a big part of shifting your relationship with your body and managing like your body language is bringing in that self-awareness. How is my body matching how I'm feeling or how I'm actively listening to this person? The next one is leaning forward. Now, we don't want to crash our face down on the table. What we can easily do is just kind of shift our shoulders, our forward body into listening to that person. You probably naturally do this when you're listening to a friend tell a really interesting story. Or let's say someone has something to say in confidence, and we naturally lean in so that they can lower their voice and we can listen to what they're saying. That's a bit more personal, a bit more private. So what you want to do is, instead of course, leaning forward 100%, is lean forward as you're listening. You can kind of lean back as you're speaking. But what we want to do is just use our body to convey that interest that we have in the other person, to not only listen to them, but to also help them feel heard. Now, the E for solar is eye contact. Eye contact is another way that you can highlight that you are paying attention to what that person is saying. Now, regarding eye contact, just like anything, we can always have way too much eye contact. We want to make sure that we are comfortable, that the other person that we're speaking to is comfortable as well. And additionally, the amount of eye contact someone gives can be really dependent based on their cultural background or, for example, their neurology. So many folks with autism or who are neurodivergent might not give as much direct eye contact, and that's totally okay. A big part of the helping relationships or therapy, counseling, and now expanding it to just showing people that we're interested and open is recognizing that we're speaking to individuals. So you just want to make sure that however that person feels comfortable, we're modeling that. Now, the last one, R, it seems simple, but sometimes we don't feel it, is just feeling relaxed. Just making sure that you're combining everything else, like sitting squarely, that listening, you're leaning forward, and that you're conveying relaxation on your body. Now, you might not use this in a conversation with someone, but you may be familiar with PMR, or progressive muscle relaxation. That's when you tighten up different parts of your body. Maybe you tighten up all parts of your body for about 5 seconds, let it go. And what you'll notice is a lot of stress is melting away. You probably can't flex that in public, but it's a really great relaxation technique before a stressful conversation, before going to sleep, for example. I find that that helps quite a number of people fall asleep as well. So by using all of these elements of solar, you can really convey to other people, hey, I'm present, I'm giving you my attention, I'm interested in what you have to say, and I'm not ready to run away. I'm here with you in this moment. Making sure that your tone of voice and your content, whatever you're saying, aligns with that as well. But that's how you can use your body language, or at least one formula or framework. That's the best word for it. Framework to highlight how your body language can support your active listening. I really appreciate everyone who's here, everyone here who is in the recording. Again, even if you're attending late, I would love to see who's here today. So feel free to introduce yourself. And as I close, feel free to let me know any questions that you have. I'd love to answer them. Stephanie is someone that I was able to work with again in the last couple of years and really focus a lot more on group settings, group coaching, and being able to make sure everyone is feeling heard. For example, if you have a employee resource group, if you're part of an association or a group that's looking to facilitate a conversation, to host a workshop, I'd be more than happy to either train whomever is going to be hosting that or to support hosting that training. Because what we have to make sure is that folks feel like they can speak up, that they have the tools to speak up, and that they can really take advantage of their professional development within your organization or your company. Now, if you're joining here and you're like, I want to know the next time Sammy's hosting a workshop like this, feel free to scan this QR code, or I'll put it in the banner here. The link is subscribe.speakyal.com to be one of the first to hear about these live events. I find it really exciting to be here on LinkedIn Live, to engage with the folks who are here, answer questions, and just make sure that I'm highlighting the positive impact of public speaking education. I come from the great state of Texas, even though I don't live in Texas currently. And one part of the high school education is taking a public speaking class. And what I'll tell you about my public speaking class from high school is the main thing that I remember is that my public speaking teacher was allergic to corn. My public speaking teacher was so allergic to corn, it became an in-joke that we referenced in all of our speeches. And it was a way that we built more of a relationship with our teacher. She was super fun. There was one student who made a joke about bringing corn pops to class, and she called it death in a box. And so what I'll say with that is it's a lot easier to remember how someone made you feel, the relationship that you're building with other people. And I don't really remember all the techniques and tools that came from that public speaking class. But what I do remember is I got practice. What I do remember is I saw other people speak. What I do remember is I was able to give feedback and think critically about what other people were saying and why they were saying it. And so even if you took a public speaking class in high school, if you're like me and you forgot everything about it, I'm happy to be here to offer a refresh. So here is our time for Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. If it's after the recorded time, I'll be happy to stop by the event page and answer your questions here as well. If you have any follow-up questions or you're thinking of hiring a speaker for a future event, feel free to reach out to me via email at sammy@speakyal.com. I'd be more than happy to talk to you or your team lead. Okay, so stick around here for about another minute or so. Let's see. I see that Victoria says, feels like I'm getting ready for something when I sit at the edge of my seat. Again, I think that's another key aspect to public speaking that is underrated is how do we both physically and mentally prepare for speaking? Now, one question I've gotten, especially in my years as being a career coach, is, hey, I have a phone interview. What should I do during it? And one of the pieces of advice I always give when folks have phone interviews is to make sure they're dressed as if they were going on an on-site interview. And the reason for it is putting in that effort to wear the blazer, to wear the fancy shoes, to style your hair or even put on makeup if that's something that helps you feel confident can often be understood in the tone of your voice. We can almost always hear when someone's smiling over the phone, which is yet another piece of advice that I give for phone interviews. So, imbuing some type of ritual before you speak, especially if it's before a conference, before a session, or before the first time you speak in front of colleagues, can just make sure that you're putting your mind in a space where you're mentally preparing for that pressure. So I'm glad to hear that sitting at the edge of your seat just gives you more of that sense of like, hey, I'm getting ready for something important. Because isn't that what public speaking is about? Is about moving a message forward. And I hope for everyone here who's watching now, watching the recording, that if you have a message that you want to say in your work, on a TEDx stage, to your friends and family, that I hope you find a way to make that message count. And I will be here for you to help you out. So I want to thank everyone who has been watching this session. I appreciate you. Let me know down below in the comments as well, what other topics should I speak on? I'd be more than happy to whip up something and for us to have a bit of a conversation here. Thank you so much.